The mysterious Vinca goddesses were unveiled to the world in 2020 at a temporary exhibition in the Museum of Vojvodina in Novi Sad.
Imagine the shock on the faces of the archaeologists. Finding 2,000 figurines over a century old is not something we see every day in the scientific world. With many of them striking in their unusual and abstract forms, the origin of these figurines has become responsible for so much speculation in both the archaeological world and scientific world, with most speculations pointing towards alien origins. Sources say that these artifacts belong to the Turdaș, but this remains widely speculative. Join us in this video as we uncover the truth behind the Vinca figurines and their origins, a freaking discovery. For some researchers, these objects spark a bold interpretation that they may depict beings not of this world. According to this view, the figurines could represent sky visitors or deities who descended from the heavens and, in doing so, influenced early human development, culture, and technology. Supporters of this idea point to similar motifs found in ancient art across different continents. Figures with elongated heads, large almond-shaped eyes, narrow noses, and minimal facial detail. These recurring features have fueled speculation that ancient people may have recorded encounters with extraterrestrial beings. However, mainstream archaeology offers more grounded explanations. Scholars generally interpret these designs as symbolic or spiritual expressions shaped by human imagination, ritual practice, or altered states of consciousness. Some also suggest they may reflect cultural storytelling, social identity, or artistic conventions, rather than literal encounters with non-human entities. In this sense, the Vinca figurines continue to sit at the crossroads of mystery and interpretation, open to fascination, but still rooted in the evolving story of human creativity. Evidence from the distant past, dating back to around 7000 BC, shows that this phenomenon is not isolated. Similar artifacts have been found across parts of Europe, including the Balkans, the region of the former Yugoslavia, and northern Greece. Among the most important discoveries is the Vinca culture, located about 14 kilometers from modern-day Belgrade, Serbia. Excavations in this region have uncovered more than 2,000 figurines of unusual and striking design, making it one of the richest sources of such artifacts anywhere in the world. When researchers piece together the findings, a clearer picture begins to emerge. Ancient communities in this region developed in surprisingly complex ways for their time. Some evidence even suggests early forms of symbolic communication, possibly proto-writing or a system of signs that resembles syllabic or alphabetic structures. If confirmed, this would place certain cultural developments in the region well before the rise of major civilizations in Mesopotamia and along the Nile. Because of this early complexity, some scholars have described Vinca as an archaeological anomaly, a culture that appears more advanced than expected for the Neolithic era, when most societies were still using simple tools and had not yet developed large-scale architecture or written systems. What adds to the mystery is the sheer volume and variety of the artifacts. Alongside pottery, engraved objects, and abstract designs, archaeologists have also found thousands of figurines, both animal and human-like in form. Some of these figures depict unusual humanoid shapes, with large heads and distinct facial features, which some modern interpretations compare to contemporary grey alien imagery. While these interpretations remain controversial and are not accepted by mainstream archaeology, they continue to fuel debate about symbolism, imagination, and how ancient people understood the unknown. The figurines are often described as both unique and striking, yet they also show interesting parallels with symbolic art found in other ancient regions such as Mesopotamia and the Americas. Are they simple similarities that exist across such distant cultures, or are they really alien objects that just resemble our art forms? Keep watching to find out. Ancient Vinca people saw what no one else saw. Even though the Vinca people likely had some contact with neighboring groups, their artistic style remained distinctly their own. Their figurines stand out, especially for their abstract facial features, often triangular faces, large almond-shaped eyes, and in many cases, minimal or completely absent details for the mouth and nose. Some interpretations even suggest these forms resemble insect-like characteristics, such as those of grasshoppers. Among the discoveries are also more unusual depictions that appear to combine human and animal traits, sometimes described as hybrid beings with both human and reptilian features. These figures are often interpreted as symbolic guardians or deities, representing forces that could be either protective or threatening within their belief system. One of the most remarkable categories includes large sculpted heads that appear more detailed and structured. Some of these seem to feature helmet-like or mask-like designs, with shapes that follow the contour of the eyes and extend toward areas that could be interpreted as ears. These details raise further questions about their purpose and meaning. This leads to ongoing speculation. What were the artists trying to express? Were these figurines representations of gods, spiritual beings, or mythological figures that played a role in explaining the world around them? Or were they symbolic tools used to communicate ideas about power, nature, and the unknown? Mainstream archaeology tends to approach these artifacts through context, ritual use, symbolism, and cultural expression, rather than literal interpretations. Still, the questions they raise remain open-ended, especially when viewed outside strict academic frameworks. The Vinca culture has generated a lot of fascination because of how advanced and visually distinctive its artifacts appear for such an early period in European prehistory. Some researchers and writers have pointed to these features, alongside symbolic markings and early forms of communication, as evidence that something unusual or out of step may have occurred in the region's cultural development. One argument often raised is that human creativity tends to reflect the natural world, so unusual or abstract depictions might be inspired by real experiences, memories, or encounters. From that perspective, some interpret the Vinca figurines and symbols as possible records of things the people actually saw or believed they saw. The more speculative idea is that these artifacts reflect contact with extraterrestrial or non-human beings. This idea is not supported by empirical archaeological evidence. While similar motifs and myths about sky beings do appear across many cultures worldwide, scholars generally interpret these as shared human patterns of storytelling, ways ancient societies explained nature, power, life, and the unknown using symbolic language. What remains consistent across all interpretations is that the Vinca culture was highly creative and symbolically rich. Its artifacts continue to raise important questions about early human creativity, belief systems, and the development of symbolic expression. The mystery, in that sense, is less about confirmed external influences and more about how much of early human culture we still don't fully understand. Is the Vinca culture, and what makes it unique? Let's see. The Vinca culture. In 1908, archaeologists uncovered what is now considered one of the largest Neolithic settlements in Europe, located in Vinca, about 14 kilometers from modern-day Belgrade, Serbia. The excavation was led by Miloš Vasić, one of the pioneering figures in Serbian archaeology. What they found was remarkable for its time. The settlement showed evidence of organized living spaces, with homes built from wood and coated in clay plaster. These structures were arranged in a way that suggests streets and planned layouts, making Vinca one of the earliest known examples of urban-style settlement in Europe. Further research revealed that Vinca was not an isolated site. Similar settlements have been identified across parts of the Balkans, including areas of Romania and Bulgaria. Together, they point to a widespread cultural network that existed during the 5th and early 4th millennia BCE. Archaeologists describe this society as surprisingly advanced for its era. Evidence suggests relatively dense population centers, specialized craftsmanship, and organized production systems. People worked as potters, weavers, and metalworkers, producing goods from materials such as copper, gold, marble, shells, and obsidian. Trade networks also appear to have been active, connecting different communities and allowing the exchange of raw materials and finished goods across long distances. Even more striking is the evidence of early metallurgy. Copper mining in the region, such as at Rudna Glava, about 140 kilometers east of Belgrade, may date back to around 4000 BCE. Some mines show vertical shafts reaching depths of up to 20 meters, along with signs of early smelting activity in southern Serbia. Taken together, these findings paint a picture of a complex and highly developed Neolithic culture, one that challenges older assumptions about how quickly early European societies evolved. Archaeological finds also show that the Vinca settlement had developed metalworking tools and equipment. At furnace sites, researchers have discovered copper chisels, double-headed hammers, and axes, along with various finished metal objects that were produced locally. There are also claims about large-scale copper production in the wider region. For example, near Stara Zagora in Bulgaria, evidence suggests that in the 5th millennium BCE, copper mining may have been carried out on a significant scale, with estimates mentioning large quantities of ore extracted from several mines. Excavations in Vinca itself have also uncovered numerous figurines. Archaeologist Julka Kuzmanović-Kvetković observed that some of these figurines appear to depict young women wearing detailed clothing, such as short tops, skirts, and bracelets, suggesting a culture with attention to personal adornment and style. This unknown community, which lived between roughly 5400 and 4700 BCE in areas like Plochnik, occupied settlements that could reach up to 120 hectares. Evidence suggests they were engaged in trade, craftsmanship, art, and early metallurgy. Some researchers, including the well-known archaeologist Maria Gimbutas, grouped this broader cultural zone under the term Old Europe. Ongoing excavations continue to reshape how we understand this early European world. There are also indications of advanced settlement planning. Near some sites, natural thermal springs may have been used for bathing or healing, leading some to describe them as the oldest known spa-like locations. Within the settlements, houses were equipped with stoves and even drainage or waste disposal features. The dead were buried in designated cemeteries, showing structured burial practices. Daily life appears to have included sleeping on mats made of wool or leather, wearing clothing made from wool, linen, and hides, and keeping domesticated animals. The society appears to have placed great value on children. Archaeologists have recovered small artifacts that may have served as toys, including clay animals, rattles, and even miniature bowls that look slightly uneven, suggesting they may have been made by children themselves. The broader Old Europe culture is generally understood as a Neolithic farming society. They raised domesticated animals, such as goats, sheep, and pigs, and cultivated early varieties of grains suited to fertile soils. What makes them even more unique? Did they evolve or fall? Keep watching to find out. The Vinca people existed before their time. A few writers argue that its level of complexity seems closer to later Bronze Age societies than to typical Neolithic communities in Europe. This contrast has fueled alternative theories, including the idea, supported by proponents of the ancient astronaut hypothesis, that such development may have been influenced by external or even extraterrestrial intervention. In contrast, archaeologists generally interpret the figurines differently. Many are seen as representations of everyday life, fertility, spirituality, or idealized human forms. Some likely depict women wearing contemporary clothing and ornaments rather than supernatural beings. Still, it is true that certain figurines bear a resemblance to modern popular images of extraterrestrials found in science fiction and media. This similarity has led some to speculate that modern portrayals may have been unconsciously influenced by ancient art traditions. One notable example is a statuette that appears to show a figure wearing a mask or helmet-like covering. This raises further questions about its meaning. Was it ritual, symbolic identity, protective gear, or artistic expression? Ultimately, interpretations vary widely, and the true intent of the Vinca artists remains open to debate. The unusual triangular-shaped faces, often appearing like masks covering the upper part of the head, are generally interpreted in two main ways. The first and more grounded explanation is that the Vinca people were depicting their gods or spiritual beings in a stylized form. From this perspective, the strange proportions and mask-like features are simply part of their religious or symbolic artistic language. If this is the case, the question becomes, why did they choose such a distinctive style that differs so much from other regional art traditions? The second, more speculative interpretation suggests that these depictions may have been inspired by real experiences or events that deeply impacted the Vinca people. Supporters of this view argue that the repeated appearance of unusual humanoid forms could reflect something they actually witnessed. This leads to a further question. Why else would thousands of such non-human-looking figurines be created if they were not based on a powerful or memorable experience? And with that in mind, the next set of figures becomes even more intriguing and open to interpretation. Similar figurines have also been discovered in Bulgaria, particularly within the Karanovo and Varna cultural complexes. In 2014, during rescue excavations near Plovdiv, Bulgarian archaeologists uncovered a figurine that has sometimes been sensationally referred to as an extraterrestrial goddess. The artifact depicts a female figure with a calm, almost smiling expression, but with strikingly unusual eyes completely blank, without pupils or irises. Because of this feature, it was informally nicknamed the extraterrestrial goddess. However, archaeologist Buchvarov, who studied the find, interpreted it more cautiously, noting that it represents a mother goddess figure typical of the late Chalcolithic period, around the early 4th millennium BCE, and dismissing more sensational interpretations. The figurine stands about 18.5 centimeters tall and was found broken into only 2 pieces, which some researchers argue suggests it was not intentionally destroyed in a ritual context. Another related anthropomorphic figure from the same area is also notable. It appears to combine traits. While it is identified as a mother goddess, its facial structure resembles a male face, yet it clearly displays female breasts. The eyes are made from schist stone, adding further detail to its construction. In a separate discovery near Provadia in 2020, an area known for hosting the oldest salt extraction site in Europe, archaeologists found another unusual ceramic artifact. This piece features a triangular stylized form that continues the distinctive artistic tradition seen in the region. The artifact features a raised section that appears to depict a human face, while the back portion is more roughly shaped and less detailed. At the top corners, there are small protrusions that may represent stylized ears, and these also seem to function as perforations, possibly used for hanging the object. The facial details are created using engraved lines that distinguish both smooth and rough surfaces. The design includes defined eyebrows, a stylized nose, and elongated, oval-shaped eyes. What conclusion does this leave us with for the Vinca people and their strange artifacts? Let's see. Human figurines with unknown meanings. When images of the artifact were released, interpretations varied widely. Some described it as a birdman. Others suggested it resembled an extraterrestrial being, and a few even compared it to modern fictional characters like Transformers. However, archaeologists generally interpret it more conservatively as a clay vessel lid, unrelated to extraterrestrial explanations. The object was discovered at the Provadia Saltworks site, which dates to approximately 5,600 to 4,350 BCE. This site is considered one of the earliest known salt production centers in Europe and may have functioned as a significant prehistoric settlement. Some researchers describe Provadia as an early urban center, noting that salt at the time was extremely valuable, comparable in importance to oil in the modern world. Control of salt production would have given the settlement significant economic power in the region. According to excavation leader Professor Vasil Nikolov, the Provadia Salt Works may represent one of the earliest engines of complex society in Europe, with organized production and trade systems emerging thousands of years before the rise of classical civilizations. Provadia, the salt works, gained international attention once researchers realized that some of Europe's earliest known stone fortifications were built there. This discovery has led to questions about how such early communities developed advanced knowledge of construction and organization. Some speculative interpretations even suggest the possibility that inspiration came from symbolic or divine figures represented in local figurines, though this idea is not supported by archaeological evidence. It is estimated that around 350 people may have lived in the settlement between 4,700 and 4,200 BCE, roughly 1,500 years before the rise of ancient Greek civilization. The site shows unusually strong defensive architecture for its time, including massive stone walls designed to protect both the settlement's wealth and its inhabitants. This wealth was largely tied to salt production and trade, which made the settlement economically powerful. At present, there is no known parallel in 5th millennium BCE Europe for a stone fortification of this scale, making Provadia Saltworks a remarkable archaeological site. However, excavations are still ongoing. Because of the size and complexity of the settlement mound, large portions of the site remain unexplored, meaning many discoveries may still lie ahead. Before moving on to more dramatic interpretations, it is worth revisiting a key artifact from Provadia. Some archaeologists believe it may have been a clay vessel lid rather than a figurine. In fact, similar clay containers shaped like animals and covered with lids were common in this period. The worn and smoothed front surface likely comes from repeated handling and use, while the interior side remains less affected. The exact purpose of these artifacts is still difficult to determine. Some interpretations suggest that they may have been created using carefully considered proportions, possibly intended to produce symbolic or ritual significance. However, the original knowledge and intentions of the ancient artisans remain unknown. Over time, various accounts have described alleged encounters with beings often referred to as grey extraterrestrials. These stories are sometimes said to date back thousands of years, though there is no verified historical or archaeological evidence to support such claims. Descriptions in these accounts often mention beings with elongated, almond-shaped eyes and subtle facial features, which some people compare to certain ancient figurines. One of the artifacts in question is part of a collection of Neolithic statuettes dated to around 6000 BCE and is currently housed in the National Archaeological Museum in Sofia. What do you think about these suspected alien Vinca figurines? Do you think they might really be of alien origins? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you for joining us to explore the Vinca figurines and their true origins. We hope you found this video intriguing. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video on your screen to explore more shocking discoveries. See you there.